So welcome everyone, Namaste and Namaste Indumathi Rao ji. It's such an honor to have you here today. To introduce myself, my name is Ishana Datusoya and I'm a rising 10th grader at Western Sierra Collegiate Academy. I'm going to be one of the moderators for this interview.
Namaste, my name is Amrita Siram. I'm a rising junior at Paradise Valley High School, and I'm also one of the moderators for today's interview.
Namaste, my name is Siddharth, and I'm going to be going into 10th grade, and I go to Pleasant Grove High School.
Namaste, my name is Sejal. I'm a rising 9th grader in American High School.
Namaste, my name is Satya. I'm going to be a 12th grader at Mountain House High School.
Namaste ji, my name is Meher and I'll be a rising 8th grader at Iron Horse Middle School.
Namaste ji, my name is Sai Karthik and I'll be going to 11th grade at Kimball High School.
Our mentor for this project was Madhu Bidrali ji. He lives in San Jose, California and works as an ASIC design engineer in Tarana Wireless.
To introduce the Dharma Internship Program, it's a summer program conducted by HSS, the Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh. During the internship, we learn about the Mahabharata and also modules about Hindu and Indic heritage, history, culture, and spirituality. The interns also attend webinars with various influencers, as well as being part of projects that involve researching, interviewing changemakers, writing articles, creating audiobooks, and even recording songs. This program is conducted in over 50 centers across the United States.
Like Amrita mentioned, there are many projects that you can choose from as part of the Dharma Internship Program, and one of these is the Stories of Transformation Project. Through this, the interns investigate, honor, and recognize the work of leading changemakers, and we get the opportunity to live interview them. We then conduct research and write articles to be published in reputed magazines and many other online forums.
Namaste, Indumathi Rao. It's an incredible honor to have you here today. Indumathi Rao has been an active social worker for over 38 years and has also been a former member of the National Commissions for Persons of Disabilities in the Government of India, along with being the chairperson of the Global Partnership and Development, which has been initiated by the World Bank Trust Fund. Indumathi Rao focuses on inclusive development for the disadvantaged and also founded the CBR Network, which is the community-based rehabilitation.
So just a little bit about CBR Network. CBR stands for Community-Based Rehabilitation. CBR Network South Asia is a charitable trust which has been working since 1992. It focuses on the development and inclusion of the disadvantaged, whether that be due to aging, poverty, or disabilities. The services that they provide are mainly to those in rural areas, as many of the pre-existing resources are located in urban areas and rural communities don't have access to those. CBR Network helps these disadvantaged individuals, families, and communities integrate into mainstream society by helping them get the education they need and helping them feel empowered in themselves. CBR Network South Asia is present across 8 countries in South Asia. These are India, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and Maldives.
A little bit more about the CBR Network. It provides support, resources, and carries out education programs. The Odisha Portage on Early Child Inclusion has been implemented in 42,000 Anganwadi centers in Karnataka. The organization empowers senior citizens by utilizing support groups. Also develops manuals for parents, teachers, doctors, and healthcare workers on rehabilitation.
And that concludes our presentation. So we'd now like to move on to the interview portion. Once again, thank you so much, Indumathi ji, for being here with us today. I'd like to start by asking you to share a little bit about your organization and how you started it. Indumathi ji, it looks like you're on mute.
Thank you very much. It is very touching and a little overwhelming to see very young generation. Almost most of you are my grandkids' age. So very happy to see you to touch on some of the critical issues that is faced, I would say, across the globe. Disability is such an issue which there is no part of this earth where disability is not affected the communities. It is there not only with human beings, we see the disabilities also in other living forms. And what we are really looking at is, see, disability affects the people. There are a couple of questions which people like me, we had in mind. One is, as a very young student activist, I had an opportunity to work in backward areas. I won't call it as slums, we call them as Seva Bastis, where I used to give a cup of milk and narrate a story from Panchatantra. So this I did exactly of when I was of your age, when I was in high school. So I carried that program until I completed my graduation. So that you can imagine it was a long term. And during that period, children, they used to come only to have a cup of milk and they used to run away. So they were not waiting for a story. So I was quite disappointed because I had prepared so much to tell them story in a very interesting way, but they were only interested in a cup of milk. After some time, then they sat for the story and they start listening to Panchatantra stories. So after a while, the company which was giving us free milk powder, they stopped. Fortunately, they stopped. And I was really worried whether these children would come back or not. It was in a small temple in Bangalore, in one of the backward areas near the heart of Bangalore. If those who have visited Bangalore, you know where the railway station is. It was very close to that area. So when the milk powder was stopped, I still went there every evening to see whether children would come. And to my surprise, none of the children stopped and they came, and now they came for stories. So it was very reinforcing and to someone like me that these children can be motivated to listen to stories. And these stories, I had no idea of, how this would change, transform their lives. But as I went on to complete my graduation from Bangalore University, I could see those children who was generally school dropouts, who also went to a lot of, I would say, antisocial activities in Bangalore. I could see them going to schools and colleges, and some of them getting into professional programs like medical school, engineering school. I was really surprised. Like just spending time with them and telling them a story can bring this change. So during that period, I saw about 4 children with disabilities where they could not understand what the story was about. As you know, Panchatantra was also designed to transform the princes who had a difficulty in learning. So we would put them into some category and give them an ID card and call them disabled. But there was an attempt to make changes in their life. So these children also, I saw a lot of change in them where they were trying to understand not the story, but they were trying to understand the principles of social inclusion. So they're talking to other children, they were learning to play with them. We had some games for them to the story. So I was really impressed with that. So when we looked at it, of course, I also come where my brother was severely epileptic. So I knew the misconceptions and misinformation in families can lead to a lot of problems. So when I was working with them, I had an opportunity to again go to start and work with a very big organization called Vidyarthi Parishad. So as a student activist, and carried on this work and started a couple of inclusive schools like Nivedita Shishu Kendra, Nivedita Manovikas Kendra, started with inclusion and see that whether children can work learn together. So during that process, after my graduation, I was given Rothenberg Fellowship from Royal Society of England, and I did my post-graduation in University of Manchester, and then came back with a design to reach the Indian rural areas. So the design for my dissertation was how to reach the Indian rural areas. Started projects for Seva in Action, adopting about 40 villages, and then it went to about 186 villages with support from UNICEF and others. So under the banner of Hindu Seva Pratisthana, we started many activities. And when we were doing it, there was a lot of demand for people to start similar projects. There we thought about networking. So instead of doing things directly, we thought we should network, share, help each other, build on each other's strengths. And that is how the CBR network was established and there India is, if you see larger India, we the same. If you travel in India, from India to Sri Lanka, Nepal, even Pakistan, Bangladesh, you really don't feel that you are outside India, because I have traveled a lot in South Asia. You just feel that it is just an extension. So we have very similar cultural strengths and cultural values, and same socio-cultural, even our demographic conditions are by and large same. So we thought we should look at this as one common entity. We may have other differences political, but we said I'm not bothered about that part of it, but let us work together. And the network was established on 8 countries with all the partners very actively participating, both by the government and the civil societies. Thank you.
It's really inspiring how you started with this passion at a young age, and now many years later you've started this huge organization. So one thing you mentioned, you told a lot of Panchatantran stories. What was one of your favorite stories that you used to tell?
My favorite story, I would go with say one boy. He was completely paralyzed below waist, and I started working with him when he was maybe around 2 years from a small village. So when after working with him and to help him to become mobile with supportive assistive technology, what really inspired me is, say, after about 10 years, I meet him in a meeting, and I could not even recognize him. He was such a confident young man. So he was in one of the very premier engineering colleges, and he came and said, Madam, I just want to develop assistive appropriate technology for rural children. You have inspired me. It is a very big inspiration for me, learning from the grassroots. But I also derive a lot of inspiration from stories of Ashtavakra Rishi. I don't know whether you know about him. He had 8 deformities, where he goes to King Janaka's kingdom because he wanted to see the real stalwarts in knowledge. And when he goes there, the so-called intellectual giants, they start laughing at Ashtavakra Rishi when they see him. Then he tells Janaka, oh, I did a mistake by traveling all the way, wasting my time and energy to see a set of cobblers who can't see the beyond skin. So it is something which is very penetrating statement. There is also a very famous sloka of Ashtavakra Rishi on that. So it really speaks a lot about the need to see beyond skin. The physical appearance has a lot of focus even now in the fashion industry. Those whatever the person is, they make you to feel the deficits. So that is how the entire thing is engineered. So it is so important to see more of inner beauty and inner strength than the external appearance. So I'm really inspired by Sage Ashtavakra Rishi, and also Sage Vyasa's very famous shloka. Ganapati. Ganapati was the stenographer for Sage Vyasa when he wrote Bhagavata and Mahabharata. So Ganapati asked him, why are you writing so much? And Sage Vyasa had a condition that he will have a bath and he will come, and when the cloth, before it gets completely dried up, he would write a chapter. That was his speed. And Ganapati has to keep aligned with the speed of Vyasa. And then Ganapati asks, I have one question. Why are you writing all this, wasting your time? And then he says, if you have to put all this what you have written in one shloka, what is the essence of all that you are writing? Then Vyasa says, if I put everything, all the Vedas, Upanishads, and all the scriptures, if I put it together, I can sum up why I am writing in one shloka. That is, I am telling people the purpose of life. And there he says, Paropakarartham idam shariram. He says the very purpose of life is to be of help to others. Of course, Swami Vivekananda, who has inspired many thousands and millions of people like me, he says, only those who live for others, they live, others are more dead than alive. As a very young, during my young age, I was very much inspired by these statements of people who it was like almost like hitting you, with a bullet. So it was that strong, I could not even sleep. Oh, if that is the purpose of life, then what I am doing? That was constantly the question. If the purpose of life is to be of help to others, of course, I was looking at not doing harm is one step, of to be help is to others is an advanced one. And that is the best way to lead one's life.
It's really inspiring. I think I definitely agree that the purpose of life is to help others, and it's amazing how that inspired you. I believe Amrita is going to ask the next question.
Namaste, Ji. So my question for you is, how did your childhood influence your experiences and what impacted you the most?
Could you please say that again?
How has your childhood influenced your experiences and what impacted you the most?
See, I would say I was born in a very large family, 7 brothers and sisters and brothers who are always willing to make sisters' life, miserable. That is the kind of life. And also a very small, we never thought about having our own space because there was small space and we were all sharing that space. And we have had our own democratization. That is what I see when I look back my childhood. My brother made rules. He said, when people are sleeping on the floor, if you have to walk out, if you step on someone, it is not a mistake. So that is okay. So he would make such rules and we would follow him blindly. And he would ask us to follow the rules of running or picking up the step. He was quite a good, he was a gifted child. Like he would make experiments at emptying the electric bulbs and asking us to bring the raw materials. So it was a very good childhood and playing in the streets. And of course, I had a lot of influence from my mother. She was a very good researcher on farming. I'm still actively engaged in organic farming. So she used to do a lot of research and experimentation in organic farming activities. And my father was a Vedic scholar and he would simplify the Upanishads for us to understand in day-to-day life. All this has really inspired a lot. More than that, I have seen non-discriminating. We talk about big things now when about the human rights and equity. But when I was in childhood, it was all practiced. Like we never discriminated. No, we never had those ideas. So there was no conditioning that others are different from us. So even when it comes to religion, so though I come from a very religious, Vedic family, my father had a friend who was a Muslim who had a horse cart. No, it is called. We used to call in Kannada Jetaka Gadi. So he would come here and he was not allowed to come inside the house. But my father was very particular that he comes there and eats masala dosas and have coffee, and he would talk about Quran and my father would talk about Upanishads, and this conversation would go on and on. And all this has really influenced me that there is a lot more than what we hear and what we see outside the world. So discrimination, if children are not conditioned negatively, the world, there is nothing much for us to do in this world. So it is the conditioning. So who is responsible Of course, it is adults who are responsible for conditioning. So if their children are free of conditioning, the world will be very beautiful. So that is my strong impression from my childhood. I
That's
just want
really
to add. I just want to add one more thing. My childhood also told me, like, I have traveled a lot because I was chairing the World Bank Global Partnership for Disability and Development. It was initiated by the World Bank Trust Fund. So I have traveled worldwide. I have seen the poverty and the cultural poverty. It is equated in the Western countries, but in India, it is not so. Even the poorest man can be a highly advanced person in his spiritual knowledge and in his accomplishments, which is poverty is not never equated with the problems of social the social fabric of the society disturbing, which I see in the West, which is India is very unique in that way that even if they have one square meal, he gets connected with the cosmic laws. He gets connected. He thanks God for every small meal he gets. So, and he always, when you talk to rural people, they always quote something which is based on the. Now we are in the, we are talking of the climate change. When I go into the villages, they were so much conscious of these factors of reuse, reduce, and recycle. And who taught them? It is the culture. So that is something which has always impressed me, which has touched me. That we have a lot to learn from the rural people and from the poor. And poverty has got nothing to that. And poverty, the way it is defined in economic terms, I disagree with that to some extent. The poverty is more of poverty of values, poverty of being a non-human, and poverty being a non-considerate to others. I would put it that way rather than looking at the financial. Thank you
I definitely agree with you on that too.
very much.
It was really inspiring how your childhood also influenced your experiences. The next question will be taken by Kriti.
Thank you.
Namaste, Indumathi Rao. The question I have for you was, has Hindu Dharma and culture influenced your life and journey? And if so, how did it?
I didn't hear that properly, Kriti. If you can just raise your volume a bit.
Yeah, sorry. Namaste. The question I have for you is, has Hindu Dharma and culture influenced your work in any way? And if so, how did it influence your work?
Oh, that is a very good question, very important question. Just yesterday, we were debating on a national policy on disability. And one of the things what we were talking about is the policy is not driven by the culture. Why we are talking about so much about something, when we talk about disability and why we want to be rooted in culture. See, when we look at culture, no, the way we are looking at, especially the Indian culture, we have to look at many things. What has influenced me is the Indian society, the basic fabric of Indian society and the ecosystem. It is not an independent society like we have in the West. It is an interdependent society. It's very important for government, for policymakers, even for civil societies to understand the inherent strength that is there in every nerve cell of India. I would put it as if you look at the India DNA, I would see this as the cultural values is embedded into that, and we have to look at these things when we are developing public policies. See why culture becomes very important. Understanding that it is an interdependent society is a very important aspect, and the well-knit family system. Now, of course, you can understand well because you are living in that part of the world where you see that how important it is to have the well-knit family structure for the development of not just for the child but for the entire society and the nation and also at other levels. So if India comes with a very strong well-knit family structure, where people are not only interdependent, people somehow manage. I'm not saying there are no differences, there are no fights. I think there are umpteen, which I have seen. That is not the issue. But in spite of all that, staying together is, as a family, is the strength of India, which the policy should be built on that. And the community-based rehabilitation, though it has come from Dr. Helander, who was in WHO, with whom I have worked very closely, he always said that was inspired by Indian Mahabharata for thinking about community-based rehabilitation. So I used to joke, no, what is that you have understood from Mahabharata? He said, whatever may be the fight, no, stay together is the essence. That was a very interesting way of. He was a Swede, Swede. He was working in WHO, very well-known cardiologist. But the way he looked at Mahabharata is, it is not preventing fights. He said, irrespective of the fights, how to stay together is the lesson of Mahabharata. I really liked it. And community-based rehabilitation, the philosophy which I promote, is very much there, that we accept people with differences. So we celebrate diversity. We don't want to typecast people and put them into one jacket that they all should look same, think same, talk same, do same. We don't believe in that. So it is a unity in diversity. So that is what Indian culture is all about. And my work is greatly influenced because we started a moment where in 80s where people with disability were seen as a burden. Now people with disabilities are being now seen as assets, and people were seeing more of disabilities in people. Now people have started looking at abilities. Children were segregated away from the families and the community. Now it is seen out of fashion even to think like that. It is even it is a sin to segregate them. But now they see that children with disabilities have the same rights, and for the love and affection and family bond. Education and other things, they come later, but we should not deprive them of something very basic what a child needs, that is the love and affection of the family and parents. So community-based rehabilitation is very firmly based on the Indian cultural ethos, so that we should not start separate services for separate sets of people in the society, because it is neither feasible nor affordable nor sustainable, not replicable nor scalable. No, all this are all jargons. I'm sure that you are all familiar with these kind of jargons in your school. So the best is to work with the existing strengths and work with people on a partnership. So again, I would stress that there's a lot of people may have misconceptions about disability, but I see a better acceptance in rural areas towards people with disabilities, and they are more non-judgmental. I'm sure you understand the importance of living in an environment which is non-judgmental, and I see that more in rural areas. And if you go in tribal areas, even it is much better. You will fall in love with tribal culture. When you look at them, I will just share a story. There is a place called Biligiri Rangan Betta. It is BR Hills near Mysore, not very far from Bangalore. If you are in Bangalore, please visit that place. It is a part of the forest area. There is a tribal area where traditionally they sell honey. No? That they are called as the Jenu Kurbas. So the Jenu means honey in Kannada. So they sell that. So when I was doing a project for UNICEF in the tribal area, I was looking at that none of their houses or the huts, what they had, were not locked. I asked them, and when I was looking at children came and they could go to any house and eat. So when people cook the food, it belonged to children first and not their own children. It's the children of that hamlet. So they were free to eat. So this is what I told UNICEF. You should be learning about nutrition from them. Okay. This is the collective, and they gave the first priority to children, and houses were not locked, and children had liberty to walk into any house and eat. see the immense value the tribal people bring in, who should be learning? I think we should be learning from them. So, and I could not see malnutrition at all in the area. And when we went deeper into why there is no malnutrition, because of this culture that the right to food, the first it went to children. And they said the old people, no, they had a right to eat in any house. I think the whole world should be learning from the tribal community. So these are some of the things which has really made me to think that instead of going with that we know and we give, it is very important to go to community to learn from them. And they should be in the driver's seat. We should be driving, maybe a little bit of backseat driving. Maybe it is required in the beginning, but we should get out of the boat and get out of the car and leave it to people to drive on their own. This needs a lot of humility. And people would say they have done it. That is the beauty. So they will not say, oh, you did it, you saved our life. No, that is not the way to save us. So people will say they did it, and that is how it should be. So that we have to learn from them. So that needs a different kind of culture where people are willing to learn from people. I mean, they call them stakeholders. You call it any name, but where only the wearer knows where the shoe pinches. So no amount of knowledge from any university, because I have written so many research papers, but nothing can match of a person who is really experienced. So that is something very important that we should build on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's really incredible that you believe in India's close-knit culture and diversity.
Thank you.
Deva's going to take the next question.
Thank you, Kirti. Namaste, I'm Indumathi Rao. My question for you today is that what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them?
I would say that one of the biggest challenges what I see in India, especially with the focus on disability, I would also look at women and also aging, because I look at all these three areas, is the lack of self-confidence and self-esteem that should go in children, that they can change their lives and they can change the society. So it's very important that the education system should make people to feel more confident, not less confident. And people and education which really doesn't align with their immediate environment and immediate say challenges, it really doesn't make sense. Like for example, I see in children in rural areas learning about something which has never taken, which one would not see. Maybe it could be about a kangaroo in Africa, Australia, or some area in Africa, but they would not know something immediately if there's a leopard walking around. They would not even see. That I have seen even in my work in Jammu, where people were talking about empowerment of women, and they would not even look out of the window, like what is happening to women around. I feel that is one of the very big challenge of disconnected, complete disconnected with the immediate environment. That is not really going to empower children. It is very important to be always connected and to find solutions to the immediate problems. Talking about big things, like the global warming and other things, but unless you relate to what you can do next, that is not going to make sense for children. So I feel it is very important to see that, the education system in India is more enabling and empowering rather than feeling low and the majority of people in villages, the moment they pass 10th or 12th, the first thing they do is they get out of the village. So what is that we are going to achieve with that kind of education? So unless we add value to that and make them as contributors to the rural economy, this kind of migration is not going to help. It is going to be a very serious problem if we don't address these issues. So I would again look at education, which is deeply connected with their immediate environment. That is very important, and also to be proud of. Not I'm not just looking at emotional level, but also to be proud of what they have. If they start looking down their own parents and grandchildren, their own environment, looking to the poverty, what is the whole purpose of life? If we start looking looking down our own people, and we can't really expect us to go outside that environment and have respect for others, we will be nowhere. No, we say the Trishankus. We neither belong to a older world or the newer world. So that is it is a kind of a schizophrenia. So we have to really avoid that and see that people have respect and regard for their own families, for their own community, and start solutions. Because I'm sure that you all know the definition of intelligence. It is the problem-solving ability. If they can't solve problems in their own community, what is the use of all this education and knowledge? I would really look at that as a very big issue of education which doesn't enable children. Rather than they disable them, disability is not just having a physical or sensory or intellectual or blood cell disorders or hemophilia. All this are all the conditions, health conditions. Disability is having a feeling of that I'm not able to do it. That is the worst disability. Or if one feels, oh, I'm not able to do it, that is a disability which we need to overcome. And we need the schools have a very big role to play, and we need a different kind of system. I'm sure that you have heard about National Education Policy 2020 in India, so which is making the first attempt. See, for many years, for 75 years of India, we had the British education system. Not the way education is in Britain, because I studied in University of Manchester and I've really done a lot of work in England. I'm familiar with the system there in both Scandinavian countries and also in England. But the kind of education that was developed by a British one person by name Macaulay, it was just about a 500-page document. All that they wanted was people who can do the clerical work for the British Empire. And we followed that for 75 long years. Even I'm a product of that. Maybe I would have been a lot better if I was not a product of this. So in spite of that, we have been able to do it. I would thank some of the associations and organizations I was part of it. Otherwise, it is always feeling low, always feeling not able to do it, and being, not having confidence is one, and also to have a feeling of somewhat slavish mentality. All that has really one of the major disadvantage, because I see children in other countries very, very confident. But when I see children here, they will not even, they are confident outside the school. Inside the school, it is always talk and chalk and rote learning, obedience. See, all this, when you are not doing it properly, it can damage the child's personality. So I would see that as a major challenge. And for people with disabilities, I would say that attitude, misconceptions, if you demystification, if we can do that type of disability, we don't have to do anything. The problem what we have in India is misconceptions about disability and having misinformation about disability, and all that would lead to a lot of problems. So demystification is something which is very, very important. Is one of our major goals in CBR. We put it even the highest technology in very simple terms, which a rural mother can understand. It is known as portage, where you have introduced about my work about CBR portage. Portage is used in 142 countries. In fact, it was started in the US when Kennedy was president. And I have Indianized ruralized portage program to work with children. All that portage does is demystification. Oh, this is so simple. So something very simple is made so complicated. So we want to make, even if it is complicated, make it very simple so that a mother can understand. But if mother cannot understand, if professionals understand, that will not bring changes in life of a child. So this I would see as some of the challenges, not one challenge, there are multiple challenges. And I would not really see as economic status as a very big challenge, but attitudinal poverty becomes a very major challenge for us to move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, and I completely agree with you that we should have confidence in ourselves. The next question will be asked by Satya.
Namaste, Indumathi ji. I wanted
Namaste.
to ask you, how many people has your organization reached so far? And do you have a target in mind about how many people you want to reach in the next year?
That is a heavily loaded question. See, when we as a network, network is like river Ganga. No, I'll give an example. Network is not like a pond or a stagnant water. So network flows, and wherever it flows, it will help the neighborhood. No? That is the strength of a network. And network is based on the concept of building on each other's strengths and sharing knowledge, skills, information, success as well as failures. Because in CBR, we also do a lot of failures sharing, because we want people to know where I have failed so that they don't repeat. Always talking about success stories is not good. So it's very also important to be very open and also share the failure stories. So with that, we work in 8 countries in South Asia. In terms of numbers, it is quite a large number because we work even in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Maldives, Bangladesh. So it is, and in India, we are present from, I would say, from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. That is the easiest way to do it. So how do we really reach? There are 2 strategies which we use in terms of reaching out to number. So far, we have trained more than about 10 lakh people to know about portage and work on CBR. I'll just give you an example. In Nepal, there are 76 districts. Out of 76 districts, CBR is there in 72 districts. When I went to Kailas for a parikrama 10 years ago, I was surprised to see my students almost at the Indo-China border. So I was really surprised. I was not prepared to see that, but that is the kind of spread. Okay, so it is it increases in geometrical proportions. Okay, when we are looking at the training, and we also do a lot of training through universities like Bangalore University and Karnataka State Open University, Mysore. And I also work with central universities like in Tezpur in Assam, it's a tribal university, and in Rural Development University in Gadar, Jammu Central University, Gujarat Central University. I've been President of India, representative to some of these universities. We promote Center for Disability Studies and Inclusion in all these universities. A lot of human resource development, and I also work very closely with University of Washington, Seattle. And just last week, the diocese, the Division for Special Education of the United States, they shared my work as one of the successful examples for the US special education. And I'll be sharing with Seva International the stories. And we are holding the next diocese conference, which happens once in 2 years in India, where we have been successful in convincing the US. In India, in Bangalore, in cooperation with CBR Network. So we'll be doing it next year. So that is going to be a very big global event, which I'm very happy that we are part of that. So I request all of you to visit that, to join us. So it's quite a large number. Policymakers, public policy is one of our interests. We are debating on disability policy, which developed by Government of India. Of course, we are not very happy with it, with the draft, but we are happy with the attempt India has taken. But we want to strengthen it, that it has to be culturally rooted, culturally centered, and not just a copy from the West. Because copying, we all copy to some extent. It is one of the techniques we in psychology, the imitation. But if we just copy policies, strategies, plan of actions, roadmaps, it is not going to work. So it has to be tailor-made. I always say that the strategies in development, it should not be like men buying t-shirts. They go to shop, they ask them, give me large or extra large or XL or M or something, and they try to fit into their shirt. But it should be more like the women's tailors. Of course, there are two young men. I don't want to discourage you. But where we are very particular when we go to a tailor, that it should be tailor made. It's very difficult to be a ladies tailor, one of the most challenging profession. So we make my life miserable by giving 101 specifications, and you will see that when the final product comes, it meets the requirement of that particular woman. And solutions should be more tailor-made rather than ready-made. So because in ready-made, we expect the wearer to adjust to the garment, but in tailor-made, we take the needs of the individuals. So that is something very important. And I really feel that, the human resource development, what we are doing, numbers are very important, but at the same time, I would say that the qualitative indicators are very, very important, because to reach a large number, only governments have the power to do that. They have infrastructure. Of course, they can collect tax. Just if they collect one, say, rupee cess, they can do wonderful things which others cannot do it. That is the power of the government. And they're spread to every nook and corner of the country. We don't see that with any civil societies. So working with the government and working with the policies is very, very important. So it is quite a large spread we have done. I would look at more the qualitative index for CBR network than just quantifiable. Quantifiable, it sounds very large, but still, if you see the large country, it looks like a tiny drop in the ocean. That makes us very humble. Even at 10 lakhs, only 10 lakhs, because when you are talking of crores, 10 lakhs seems a very small number. So that is why we are looking at more scalability, more of inspiration value, motivating the government and motivating others, motivating people. So finally, it is people, people, people. So if we can, if we want to bring change in the society, we have to influence, motivate people, not change them, because we have to learn from them. So we have to help them to build on their own strengths. That is the best way to work at the community level. Rather than saying that you don't know anything, you do what we ask you to do. That is not the way for social development. But to say that you are already doing it, identify it is not pampering them. Identify all the strengths and build on that. That is the best way to move forward.
Wow, it's incredible how widespread the CBR network is, and we only hope it continues to grow. Mehar will ask the next question.
Thank you, Satya. Namaste, Indumathi ji. My question for you today will be, how do you reach out to people with disabilities? More specifically, how do you raise awareness to those in need of your services?
It's a very focused question, so thank you. See, disability in India, I will share about 5 key points which is very important for us to understand. So one is in India, we really don't know about the incidence of disability. So there are 2 terms which we use in disability. One is known as incidence rate. I'm talking about the numbers, the data, the database on disability. The other is known as prevalence. In India, unfortunately, even to this date, we don't have the incidence rate. So incidence rate means those who are born with disability. Okay. So to have the incidence rate, we need to have mandatory screening of all newborns across the country. So you can imagine the gigantic exercise that is involved. And the second one is there has to be a immediate registration on the onset of disability, whether it is due to accidents or due to war or due to sickness. There has to be registration. Both systems have not been in place the way it should be. It is there in a piecemeal way, but not the way it should be. So we don't know what the incidence rate. The term prevalence on disability refers to those who survive. That is known as the prevalence rate. These are all some of the statistical terms. I'm sure as secondary school students, you are all familiar with these terms. Prevalence is those who survive. Even that data, we have a very inadequate data. The last census in 2011, they included about 7 types of disabilities, and they asked people whether you have a disability. Whether people were aware that they had a disability, they said yes, and where they were not aware, they said no. And there are nearly about 60% of disabilities. I would say even more than 60. They are invisible disabilities. People, would not know whether they have a disability. The third aspect is the disability is not one; it is the entire spectrum. So those with the disabilities with the mild and moderate levels, it is very difficult to identify. So those will not be captured in surveys. So with all these limitations in India, in 2011 census, they talked about 2.86 crores people with the disabilities, with 7 types of disabilities. But the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act that was passed by Indian Parliament after India signed the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities called UNCRPD in 2016, they included about 21 types of disabilities. So we really don't know where these 21 types of people with disabilities live and what is the kind of disability they have, and also what is the intensity of disability. We have no idea about that. So these are some of the major challenges, what we have. The second aspect is being the government also talks about something like high support needs, benchmark disability. It is more, it comes from like if I have, say, 100 rupees and if there are 1,000 people, then I have to come out with some cutoff points. Only those who come first, they will get it, or those who are standing to the right will get it. Something, a cutoff point more to filter. So India has come out with such benchmarks that is not very helpful for people with disabilities, because whether they are benchmark or without benchmark, they need support, because if we don't, it is like a stitch in time, it saves not 9, it saves million in the case of disability. If we start early intervention, if we support them, then we can prevent, I would say, 100% disabling, secondary disabling conditions. That is the strength of CBR. That is the kind of technology we have developed. So it is possible to prevent the secondary disabling conditions, and it is secondary disabling conditions which comes in the way of learning, which comes in the way of working in social inclusion. So if we can really identify early and give support, then they will not be a burden. It also makes a lot of economic sense to a country to ensure that children within the first, I would say, 1,000 days, that is how we look at it, or maximum in the first 8 years of life, a child should be identified and they should be given immediate support. Neglecting there will cost a lot of money and a lot of hardship to the family and the child. So creating awareness on disability, we have used several approaches. We have come out with calendars each year, which goes to the every nook and wall of the country in different languages to understand disability. And also whether we are going to talk about use labels. One of my book is titled Moving Away from Labels. Because if you want to really, make a person incompetent, you just have to give a label. So it is very important not to use disability labels, okay, but to understand more the difficulties and come out with solutions. That is very important. And we are creating a lot of groups, self-help, mutual support groups of parents, where we are doing a lot of technology transfer, demystification, and making them to understand, and looking at a lot of online programs. And IRIEC is one web portal which was created last year, thanks to Amazon for their support. So sometimes the support comes from very strange sector. So Amazon was very keen to support the IRIEC. It is the International Resource Center on Community-Based Rehabilitation and Inclusive Education, where the website is known as Inclusion Bharat. So there we have Veda Talks. The Veda Talks, it is a virtual education talks. It is an acronym. And Veda Talks, we invite people from across the globe. So as I said, we work very closely with the University of Washington, Seattle, and also with the University of Texas. So we invite people from across the globe to talk to our people in the remotest villages. Okay. So because knowledge, Saraswati, there's no discrimination. Saraswati can come from anywhere. That is how the India has always looked at the knowledge. So we invite people, and even yesterday we had a Veda talk. And talking to people from across the globe and understanding what it is. And we also have Veda workshops where any parent, anywhere from, I would say not only India, in all the 8 countries, they can access to basic information about their disability through these workshops, where there are a series of workshops we organize, talking to parents what they can do with their child at home. Because that is most important, how they can help a child with cerebral palsy, how they can help a child with spina bifida, how can they help a child with a muscular dystrophy. These tips are given, and most of the materials in Portage, I use what is available in Indian Kitchen. Indian Kitchen is a very multisensory, you all know that because you all have enjoyed Indian Kitchen and its products. So what the entire Portage, I use the Indian Kitchen and use the sensory materials, so that a poor parent, there is no need for the parent to spend any money to help their child. So this is the technology, and we also use a lot of latest technology like gamification, artificial intelligence. So now we are developing, we have developed quite a number of apps, and M-Spark is one app on Portage, which is available, which is a mobile app, which people can download it from anywhere to help their children. It's meant for parents. And Trinetra is another app for audiometry and vision testing, which we have developed. And now we have another app called Homer, which look at management of disability programs. And the 4th app we are developing with the All India Council for Technical Education. It is called Unmute. So the Unmute app is on speech therapy. Of course, to start with, we are doing it in, say, Kannada language, but we are going to spread it to other languages. So this is a speech therapy app which a parent can use even in the remotest village without depending on speech therapists, because they are not available. It is as simple as that. They're just handful of people, and we have a large number of children who need speech therapy. And we also have come out with an app on non-verbal communication, sign language. We have also an Indian adaptation of sign language programs like Mechaton. I would not go into details. So if you are interested to know more about disability, you are most welcome. So globally, there is a lot of knowledge flowing. So we want to connect with the Ganga, because Ganga is always interconnected, and see that they learn from us yoga. One of our stalwarts from Sweden, Dr. Gabor Tiroler, he's spending time now in Rishikesh on learning yoga for people with disabilities. He's a very well-known physiotherapist working in, was advisor to WHO. So he's looking at yoga for people with disabilities. And we have a couple of people with a PhD on yoga, okay, for for people with disabilities. And all that is going to help everyone across the globe, not just India. So we are looking at all this in a very massive way, and awareness. The IRA web portal is one where we have Atmanirbhar Samaj, where we have a partnership market. It works like a matrimonial bureau, like matching offers and requests. So anyone across the world, if it's a medical doctor or a rehabilitation professional, can say that he is available, and people who need the services, they post their request, and we bring them together. So and it's quite a successful program. People they do it, they come and work during their spare time, holidays in the remote villages. It works quite well, and they also learn. It is a win-win situation. So this is the so of course using technology. I always say technology is Vishnu's 11th avatar. So we should make optimum use of the technology, and technology is the fine will give us solutions. Technology and getting connected with the grassroots. It's an excellent combination. So that is what we are focusing. So why I'm so much keen on technology, I will explain to you. When I was studying in University of Manchester, I did a special program on the softwares for children with cerebral palsy, for severe disabilities. And my British English friends were teasing me, why are you wasting your time? India is not going to see the face of computers in another 100 years' time. So this was in 84. So I said, because I am a science student, I had a lot of interest in technology. I said, no, I want to learn about that. So I did that program. And I come back to India in 84. Okay. I see the computers were already in road, and I was also the first one to start using, in the NGO sector, using completely computerization of my work. So now we are seeing more mobile technology moving in every nook and corner of the India, and we have to make optimum use of the technology. So I said 11th avatar of Vishnu. So it should be omnipresent, and we should make optimum use and see that we build on that. So that is where I feel technology is something we should be seen as a very powerful weapon to bring social change. So we have to make optimum use of it. Of course, the other forums, you are all aware of the social media and other things. We have to use very effectively to develop not only just positive image, but the correct image, because there's a lot of misconceptions about India's poverty, especially the definition of poverty. In fact, I have argued even with the World Bank, no, stop defining poverty from economic angle. That is not the way. If that is the kind of poverty, then we never had that kind of, we believed in that kind of poverty. Having less money, if that is not poverty, okay? Because poverty has to be looked at in a different way. So India can really look at, give a new definition for the poverty, and it is not just based on money, okay? I think I have given you enough food for thought for you to think about it. So money is not, money, it is important. I'm not saying that we don't need money, but we cannot say that poor people are bad. Poor people are antisocial. They are destructive. It is same in the Western culture. It happens. I have seen that. But I would not even say in all the Western. That is also oversweeping generalizing statement. I don't want to say that. I am saying that it has got nothing to do with the social behavior. Social behavior, social responsibility, all that they have different dimensions, and there are other attributing factors and not just poverty. So focusing on poverty for all the social evils it was a very wrong route which we have taken. I think we should put a stop to that. I would not even say Western, because I have traveled a lot and I have worked in many countries. Poor people need not be antisocial. Poor children need not be stupid. Poor children need not be low performance. All these are all misconceptions which has been more by the media, which has started, where it made people to feel that they are really good for nothing. So as I said, it has taken away self-esteem. Once you take away the Atma Bhiman, the self-esteem, what is left in a human being? Nothing. I'm sure you all agree with me. If I talk to myself 10 times a day, you're good for nothing, you're good for nothing, you're good for nothing, 11th day I will start believing it. That is how our human brain is engineered. Maybe it's a manufacturing defect. So sometimes we believe our own fallacies without thinking. So the best solution is a child should not even hear that they are good for nothing. They are inferior. They are inadequate. They are less than, with a, we call it as vicarious reinforcement, with comparison with something, okay, with a norm. Now that we should go more with a criterion. We should never compare a child with another child, but always compare a child with child himself, like how I am today and what I can be tomorrow, rather than if ABCD, that is not really going to help anyone, except generating low self-esteem. It's a very big challenge. It's a global problem. I feel it is. We all need to work on against the comparisons. It's the most evil. If you see the way in India, if you see the Gurukula system in the Vedic period, in Gurukulas, the Guru always used what we call as IEP, in the modern terms. So we have an individual educational plan. All this Gurukula, the sages, they made a tailor-made program and tailor-made curriculum for each student. I'm just looking deeply into that. Like all this best technologies in education, I see that already practiced. There were 5 students. For all 5, the guru would develop a 5 different curriculum. Okay. So this working with uniformity and with a top-down, teacher-centered, all that is not going to help. So we have to treat each person as special, as unique. I'm sure that you all know that we are all unique by 2 dimensions. One is our pace of learning, PSE, and the other is potentially inherent. Okay, so that we cannot change. That is the science. That is how we are all created. So if we want every child to run at the same speed, it's not possible. Some will fall, some will falter, some will give up, some will become dropouts. Okay, some will get frustrated. And that is a process. So it's very important to respect this uniqueness. Why each one is unique? The uniqueness comes not from whether a person is tall or fair or short, fat, thin. No, not from the physical attributes. It comes only from 2 dimensions, space of learning and the potential inherent in every person. And that even if you are born with the same family with 4 brothers or sisters, each one will be unique because the way we inherit, it is from a big pool ocean. So I can't go into the genetics. No, it is a huge ocean. So each one of us are unique and we have to make a unique contribution to this society. And in our own way. It's very important. So we have to keep on looking at, I am unique. That is, when they use special for children with disabilities, it brings low self-esteem. But when I say that I am unique, okay, it makes me happy and it makes me responsible towards others because I also respect the uniqueness of other individuals. That is very, very important. So I will not expect another person to behave or to talk or to think exactly like me. That is not the way of life. This is the strength of the Indian culture. So each one had their own space. Each one moved at their own speed. Each one had the opportunity for the full manifestation of their potential in their lifetime or in several lifetimes. That is how we looked at the entire the dharma, not religion, the dharma of life. Thank you.
Indumathi, I can only say one thing, and I believe that it speaks for all of us. That was very truly inspiring, and that every child, whether they're specially abled or they're being able to walk on their own feet, should be treated equally because it is true that everyone is unique and special in their own way. And with that, I believe Siddharth, you will be asking the next question.
That
So,
let this be the last question. Okay. I think Indumathi ji also, it's time for her also. So let this be the last question.
so knowing that you have worked with the government, how is the experience between a government and a corporate when you work with them? How's like the difference?
I'll just share a joke. See, the governments, they work with head, and civil societies, they work with heart. The marriage between head and heart is very difficult. So, sorry. When we look at the government, okay, when whatever has worked at the micro level, the government has a responsibility to implement it at a macro level. Okay. So micro level, good practices, good examples may not work at the macro level. So that is why government is very cautious. And government is also accountable in different ways. Okay, of course, they will be accountable when the election comes. So that is the reason sometimes I see government being very shy to take decisions. Like, see, if we always think about if I start walking, I may fall, then I will resolve to a decision of sitting in one place, no, not moving. I see that is one of the things what I see in the government, hesitation to do things and long delays to implement something. By the time they make up their mind and start doing it, okay, in the process, most of it would have been forgotten because there are so many changes in the government system, especially with the bureaucracy and others. They keep on changing. So I feel it is always like not only reinvention of the wheel, I also feel with that it's going in the same circle. It is like a aeroplane which is always in the runway and never takes off. Very frustrating, you know. So that is the frustration we all go through, and even I go through the same. So, and how to make that flight not to take off, how to give the, how to help to pick up that momentum, no, that is required. That is the skill which I have to learn from people like you. So maybe you have some ideas because we see the kind of inertia, okay, which is really demotivating. Okay? And you get tired of pushing and giving the momentum, and you need to have a constant support of batteries, you know, to keep on doing it. Even our batteries sometimes says, okay, I give up, no, I can't change this government. But having said that, when you are motivated and inspired by a philosophy, when you are really inspired and when we love the humanity and the country, then you may have to make a conscious, deliberate, intelligent decision that what might come may come, and irrespective of the external factors, I will not get demotivated. So that is how, that is the kind of determination. It's like a tapas. Though we are not doing it in a forest, but we are doing it in the heart of maybe Delhi, Bangalore, no, Parliament and the Lok Sabhas. But that is the kind of tapas we need. We say that no matter, no, we know that the plane will not take off, but we will not stop pushing for the plane to pick up the momentum, because we see that if we keep pushing and with powerful push-up, you know, we will be able to see the change of flight will happen. It may take time, but it will happen. But if we give up, then it will stay in the same position. That is the challenge. With the corporates, I would say that we have a lot of corporate social responsibility that is there, and there are CSR Act that is being passed by the Indian government. There are guidelines, so they have to be more connected to do changes the way the people and society wants. So not with an agenda of the corporates. So you know, the corporates and the society social changes, there is another cultural gap. They cannot think of anything without profit. And the social change is like a nishkam karma. You can't expect anything. So to bring, to match these two things are also challenges where we have to see that people doing things for them, getting highlights, getting publicity. That is what I see in the corporate culture. So that we need to change into more of enabling people, empowering them, and democratization at the grassroots is all very important. So I would see that as two challenges when we work with the corporates and the government. The other aspect is also when we look at the corporates, it comes as a project, but the social change is not a project; it is a process. Okay, so the definition of a project is a start and finish. So you cannot say that we have brought social transformation. Now it is the end. So if we leave it, it goes back to the same position. So the entire investment will be wasted. So we have to really look at more innovative ways of sustainable development, and that we have to have some changes in the way corporates looks at it, and we need government, of course. As I said, they think from head. Sometimes they don't think with head. So we have these problems also with the government. So we have to, but their government also has people like you and me. So we have to go and convince them and make them, they are also accountable to people. They want to bring change. But you need, as I said, we need to have a lot of perseverance, determination to bring about changes. Working parallel to the government has a lot of, I would call it as damaging to any country. I don't know whether I can give you example of some of the countries. I don't want to name the country because it's being recorded. We see the civil societies are stronger than the government. So that is a very dangerous position for a country. So if it is very important for the governments to be very strong, and if the civil societies have more resources, more money, more manpower than the government, then the country is bound to collapse. So that is something which we have to be very, very careful about these aspects. So the government, we get the government what we deserve, so that we all know. So we have to see that we get the right government, and the right government makes right decisions. So it is a process. Public policies. Policies is basically pathfinding effort. We should be doing a lot of research and analysis on public policies on every sector. It could be health or disability or education, women, aging, climate change. We have to go deeply into policies, because without, even if you take if you take your bike or a car, use a Google map. So without a Google map, just taking steps, not knowing where we want to reach, we may come to conclusion. When I start from Bangalore, thinking that I'm going to Mysore, I may end up in Tumkur and think that it is Mysore. Okay, that is what happens in the absence of the public policies. So we have to really do a lot of investment, and I really want the courses on public policies in the schools and colleges, and people should focus on that and have policies. So policies is a pathfinding effort which gives a clear vision, a roadmap, and indicators to know how do we know when we reach there. So all this is very important. Otherwise, it is just activities without clarity can also do a lot of damage. So I always say that in seva activities, so important to have activities, unless it is aligned with the global vision, it is not going to help just to have an activity. I have seen in the case of leprosy, because I have worked in Orissa and also in Andhra Pradesh, in Srikakulam. People have certain communities, they believe in dana. So they have given loads of facilities like housing, fan, television, and no work. So people lived from morning to evening, and many were also faking that they had leprosy. Many didn't have leprosy. I was doing an evaluation of a leprosy program for Sweden and Denmark. Denmark is very active in leprosy sector in India. So many didn't have leprosy, and in the evening they were doing what we call as Leva Devi. They were giving money for loans, and people who gave them during daytime, okay, because they were begging to earn money, and the same people borrowed money from them in the evening. And the person in the leprosy colony, he would sit with a charcoal and put like I told Indians from management Bangalore, you should learn management from them. And he would draw, where this batch should go to which temple every morning. And I asked him, why do you change this every day? Because the same people will not give money because they were begging. And he laughed and said, no, madam, we get bored seeing same people taking money from the same. So that is why they wanted variety, and he made changes. What I'm saying is, when I asked them, what do you need this, they said, please ask donors to have consideration to give us color television. So they have given only black and white color television. If that is seva, according to my understanding of seva, this is not seva. The seat in the heaven will not be reserved if we do that, this kind of seva. I told the donors, no, you will go straight to hell, because those young men, no, who can work at least for 8 to 10 hours, sitting there playing cards, gambling, begging, this is not seva, and this is not the way forward. I would say that if we have a policy, okay, all this can be prevented. Not only the government, even the NGOs, they should have a policy and a clarity on vision documents. What is that we want to achieve, and in what period of time? Okay, because life is a project, no? It is a start and finish. It has to finish at some point of time. So we have to manage the resources, whether time or money or energy and even ideas, very wisely. Otherwise, it can get wasted. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, you have completely answered my question, and it is very fascinating to know that the government doesn't work from the heart but from the brain. So thank you once again for answering my question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Indumathi ji. This interview was indeed really inspiring for us. Thank you so much for your time and answering all our questions with such detail and enthusiasm. We had a great time, and we hope you had a great time too. Thank you.
I always love to to work with young people because taking from my own experience, and this is the age where we are going to make a blueprint of everything, what is going to happen the rest of the life. So I really look forward for all your energy and for organizing this, and also look forward for working actively with you.